The 9th century in Scandinavia marked a period of profound transformations that would shape the future of Northern Europe. The territory we now know as Norway was a patchwork of small kingdoms and territories, each ruled by their own jarls and tribal chieftains. This fragmented political landscape was set against a backdrop of breathtaking natural features: majestic fjords carved by ancient glaciers, dense forests stretching as far as the eye could see, and a rugged coastline that would prove instrumental in shaping the Viking way of life. These diverse landscapes played a crucial role in developing distinct regional identities. Along the coast, communities thrived on fishing and maritime trade, while inland settlements focused on farming and animal husbandry in the limited arable land between the mountains. The harsh climate and challenging terrain fostered a resourceful and resilient population, forcing them to adapt and innovate to survive. In a typical 9th century Norwegian coastal village, daily life was a rich tapestry of activity and tradition. The salty sea air would mingle with smoke from hearth fires, while impressive longships gently rocked in the protected waters of the fjords. The architecture was dominated by communal wooden houses, known as longhouses, ingeniously designed to withstand the severe Nordic weather. These structures served as homes for extended families, with their central hearths providing warmth and light during the long winter months. The social fabric of these communities was woven together by shared traditions and oral histories. In the evenings, skalds, the warrior poets of Norse society, would gather people around the fire to recite tales of gods, heroes, and ancestors. The rhythmic pounding of hammers from the forges would provide a constant backdrop to daily life, as blacksmiths crafted tools, weapons, and everyday items essential for survival. The Viking Age was in full swing during this period, with Norse seafarers embarking on extensive expeditions for trade, exploration, and raiding. These journeys were made possible by their advanced shipbuilding technology and superior navigation skills. The longships, with their shallow drafts and remarkable maneuverability, were perfectly adapted to both ocean travel and river navigation, allowing Vikings to reach distant shores and establish trade networks stretching from North America to the Middle East. The religious landscape was dominated by the Norse pagan beliefs, with temples and sacred sites dedicated to gods like Odin, Thor, and Freyr scattered throughout the region. These beliefs were deeply integrated into daily life, influencing everything from farming practices to military campaigns. The first hints of Christianity were beginning to appear along the trading routes, though it would be many years before it gained a significant foothold in the region. This complex tapestry of geography, culture, and society would provide the backdrop for one of the most significant developments in Norwegian history, the unification of the realm under Harald Fairhair. The very features that made Norway so difficult to unite, its mountainous terrain, scattered population centers, and fiercely independent local leaders, would also help forge the unique character of the Norwegian kingdom that would emerge from this period of transformation. If you are passionate about Viking history and want to discover how one of the most powerful kingdoms of the medieval era was born, like the video and subscribe to the Medieval Archives channel so you don't miss any fascinating content. At the heart of Norway's unification story stands Harald Fairhair, born Harald Halfdanson around 850 CE, whose life would become intertwined with the destiny of an entire nation. As the son of King Halfdan, the Black of Vestfold, Harald's early life was marked by both privilege and tragedy. When his father died by drowning after falling through ice during a winter ride, Harald inherited the throne at the remarkably young age of 10, thrusting him into a position of power that would shape his destiny. Young Harald proved to be far more than just another petty king in the fragmented landscape of 9th century Norway. Even in his youth, he displayed an extraordinary combination of political acumen, military prowess, and strategic thinking that set him apart from his contemporaries. Under the guidance of his uncle and regent, he learned the intricacies of governance and warfare, skills that would prove invaluable in his future endeavors. Perhaps the most captivating aspect of Harald's story revolves around Princess Gyda Eriksdatter, a figure who would inadvertently catalyze the unification of Norway. According to the sagas, when Harald sought her hand in marriage, Gyda's response was both bold and unprecedented. She declared that she would only marry a man who could do what no one had done before, rule all of Norway as its sole king. Rather than taking offense at this ambitious demand, Harald was inspired. He made a solemn vow that would become legendary. He would neither cut nor comb his hair until he had conquered all of Norway and become its sole ruler. This romantic narrative, while perhaps embellished by medieval chroniclers, speaks to a deeper truth about Harald's character and ambition. Whether motivated by love, pride, or political aspiration, he embarked on a campaign of unification that would span decades and transform the political landscape of Scandinavia forever. Other key figures in this epic tale included Earl Rognvald Eystein, one of Harald's most trusted allies, who would later become the first Earl of Møre and Romsdal. The sagas tell us that it was Rognvald who would eventually cut Harald's hair after the completion of his unification campaign, giving him the nickname Fairhair that would stick throughout history. Harald's adversaries were numerous and formidable. Among them were powerful jarls and local kings who had ruled their territories independently for generations. These included King Eirik of Hordaland, King Sulka of Rogaland, and the sons of King Hunthiof of Nordmør, each defending their ancestral lands against Harald's expansionist ambitions. The king's personal life was equally complex. Beyond his famous pursuit of Gyda, Harald would go on to have multiple wives and concubines, following the customs of his time. His numerous offspring would later play significant roles in Norwegian history, though this would also lead to succession disputes after his death. Among his sons, Eirik Bloodaxe would become particularly notorious, eventually succeeding his father as king. Harald surrounded himself with skilled advisors, warriors, and poets who helped build and maintain his power. The skalds at his court played a crucial role in documenting his achievements and spreading his fame throughout the Norse world. These court poets, whose works would be preserved in later medieval manuscripts, provide us with valuable insights into Harald's reign and the political climate of the time. Through these various relationships and alliances, Harald demonstrated not only his military might, but also his political sophistication. He understood that lasting power required both the sword and the pen, both force and diplomacy. This combination of skills would prove essential in transforming a collection of independent territories into a unified kingdom that would endure for centuries to come. The central theme of Harald Fairhair's saga revolves around unification, a complex and multifaceted process that went far beyond mere territorial conquest. This unification represented a fundamental transformation of Norwegian society, requiring the careful balance of force and diplomacy to bring together diverse regions, each with its own distinct cultural traditions, legal systems, and power structures under a single crown. The path to unification was marked by fierce resistance and dramatic conflicts. The primary opposition came from local chieftains, jarls, and petty kings who had enjoyed generations of independence. These leaders viewed Harald's ambitions as a direct threat to their ancestral rights and traditional way of life. Their resistance wasn't merely political. It was deeply rooted in the Norse cultural values of independence and personal honor. Throughout his campaign, Harald faced numerous challenges that tested both his military prowess and political acumen. The geography of Norway itself posed significant obstacles, with its rugged terrain of mountains, forests, and fjords making military campaigns particularly challenging. Each region required different strategies for conquest and subsequent governance, as Harald learned that military victory alone was insufficient for lasting control. The most significant military confrontation of Harald's unification campaign was the Battle of Hafrsfjord, fought around 872 CE. This epic engagement, which took place in a fjord near modern-day Stavanger, represented the culmination of Harald's military efforts. The battle pitted Harald's forces against a coalition of opponents from the west coast, including powerful leaders from Rogaland, Hordaland, and the Agder regions. The coalition represented the last major organized resistance to Harald's unification efforts. The Battle of Hafrsfjord was remarkable not only for its scale, but also for its decisive nature. According to the sagas, the fighting was fierce and bloody, with numerous ships engaged in close combat in the confined waters of the fjord. The battle's outcome would determine whether Norway would remain a collection of independent territories or become a unified kingdom. Harald's victory was complete, effectively ending organized resistance to his rule and establishing him as the first king of a unified Norway. However, the aftermath of unification brought its own set of challenges. Harald had to establish new systems of governance to maintain control over his expanded territory. He implemented innovative administrative solutions, including the appointment of loyal jarls to govern regions on his behalf and the establishment of a more systematic method of tax collection. These changes represented a significant departure from traditional Norse political structures and required careful management to prevent further uprising. The unification process also had profound social and cultural implications. Harald's reforms challenged the traditional power relationships between local leaders and their communities. The introduction of royal officials and new systems of taxation altered the economic foundations of Norse society. Some regions saw the displacement of traditional leaders, while others experienced significant changes in their local governance structures. The resistance to unification didn't end entirely with the Battle of Hafrsfjord. Harald faced ongoing challenges from various quarters, including periodic local uprisings and the threat of external interference from other Scandinavian powers. Some opponents chose exile rather than submit to Harald's rule, leading to significant Norse settlement in Iceland and other North Atlantic territories. This exodus would have lasting implications for the spread of Norse culture and the development of new Norse societies abroad. Throughout these conflicts, Harald demonstrated remarkable adaptability and political wisdom. He understood when to use force and when to employ diplomacy, when to impose direct control, and when to allow local autonomy. This balanced approach helped ensure that his unification efforts would endure, creating a lasting political framework that would shape Norwegian history for centuries to come. The conflicts surrounding Norway's unification under Harald Fairhair thus represent more than just military campaigns. They embody a crucial period of social, political, and cultural transformation that laid the groundwork for the development of medieval Norway and influenced the broader course of Scandinavian history. Viking Age Norway possessed a sophisticated and highly stratified social system that governed every aspect of daily life. This complex social hierarchy was deeply embedded in Norse culture and tradition, with clear distinctions between different social classes that determined everything from legal rights to living conditions and social obligations. At the apex of this social pyramid stood the kings and jarls, the nobility of Norse society. These elite members enjoyed significant privileges and wielded considerable power over their territories. They lived in grand longhouses, owned extensive lands, and maintained their own armed retinues. Their wealth was displayed through fine clothing, elaborate weapons, and precious jewelry, often acquired through trade or raiding expeditions. Below the nobility were the carls, the free men and women who formed the backbone of Norse society. This broad middle class included farmers, craftsmen, merchants, and warriors. The carls enjoyed significant personal freedoms, could own property, bear arms, and participate in local things, assemblies. Their daily lives centered around their farms, where they grew crops like barley, rye, and oats, and raised livestock including cattle, sheep, and pigs. At the bottom of the social hierarchy were the thralls, enslaved individuals who performed the hardest physical labor. These slaves could be captured in raids, born into slavery, or reduced to servitude due to debt. Despite their harsh conditions, Norse law provided some basic protections for thralls, and they could potentially earn their freedom through service or purchase their way out of bondage. Daily life in Viking Age Norway revolved around the agricultural calendar and was deeply communal in nature. Extended families lived together in longhouses, which served as both living quarters and centers of social activity. These structures were ingeniously designed to maximize heat retention during the harsh Nordic winters, with central hearths providing warmth and light. The main room served multiple purposes as a gathering space, dining area, and sleeping quarters. Women played crucial roles in Norse society, enjoying more rights and freedoms than their contemporaries in many other medieval cultures. They managed households, participated in trade, and could own property. Some women achieved positions of significant influence as merchants, landowners, or religious leaders. Harald Fairhair's unification brought significant changes to this traditional social structure. His most revolutionary innovation was the establishment of a more centralized administrative system. He appointed loyal jarls to govern regions on his behalf, creating a new class of royal administrators who owed their position directly to the crown rather than to hereditary right or local support. The introduction of a more systematic taxation system represented another major change. Under Harald's rule, the collection of taxes became more organized and standardized across the realm. This new system required local communities to provide regular payments to the crown, often in the form of goods such as furs, honey, wax, or silver. The economy of unified Norway became more complex and interconnected. Local markets and trading centers grew in importance as the kingdom became more integrated. Craftsmen specialized in various trades, from blacksmithing and woodworking to jewelry making and shipbuilding. The production of goods became more standardized, and trade routes were better protected under royal authority. Religious practices remained an integral part of daily life, with most people following traditional Norse beliefs. Sacred sites and temples were maintained by local communities, and religious festivals marked important points in the agricultural calendar. These gatherings served both religious and social functions, strengthening community bonds and maintaining cultural traditions. Education and knowledge transmission occurred primarily through oral tradition and practical apprenticeship. Young people learned their future roles through direct participation in daily activities, whether farming, crafting, or trading. The Skalds played a crucial role in preserving and transmitting historical knowledge and cultural values through their poetry and storytelling. The unified kingdom under Harald saw the emergence of new social opportunities. Loyal service to the crown could now provide paths to social advancement that hadn't existed in the more rigid, locally based power structures of the past. This created new dynamics within Norse society, as individuals and families sought to improve their status through royal service, rather than purely through traditional means of wealth accumulation or military prowess. So can you imagine the challenge of unifying a territory as vast and diverse as medieval Norway? Tell us in the comments what impresses you most about this story so far. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Medieval Archives channel for more quality historical content. Harald Fairhair's unification campaign was marked by a series of pivotal events that transformed both Norwegian society and the course of Scandinavian history. The most significant of these was undoubtedly the Battle of Hafrsfjord around 872 CE, which stands as the defining moment in Norway's unification. This battle, fought in the waters of a narrow fjord near modern-day Stavanger, saw Harald face off against a powerful coalition of chieftains from western Norway who opposed his ambitions for unified rule. The battle itself was a masterpiece of naval warfare and strategy. Harald's forces confronted a formidable alliance of opponents, including rulers from Hordaland, Rogaland, and Agder. The confined waters of Hafrsfjord created a unique battleground where traditional Viking naval tactics had to be adapted. The fighting was intense and bloody, with ships locked in close combat as warriors fought hand-to-hand across the gunwales. Harald's superior tactical skills and the loyalty of his forces ultimately proved decisive, resulting in a victory that would echo through the centuries. Another crucial development in Harald's reign was his revolutionary implementation of the system of loyal earls. This administrative innovation fundamentally changed how Norway was governed. Rather than allowing local chieftains to maintain their traditional independence, Harald appointed trusted earls to govern regions on his behalf. These earls were directly accountable to the crown, creating a new form of centralized authority that had never before existed in Norway. This system proved remarkably effective at maintaining royal control over the vast and geographically challenging territory. The new administrative structure was carefully designed to balance local autonomy with royal authority. Each earl was granted significant powers within their territory, but was expected to collect taxes, maintain law and order, and provide military support when required by the king. This system became the foundation for Norwegian governance for generations to come, proving both stable and adaptable to changing circumstances. The fulfillment of Harald's famous vow to Gyda represents another significant turning point in the narrative of Norwegian unification. According to the sagas, when Harald finally achieved his goal of unifying Norway, he at last allowed his hair to be cut and combed. This event was far more than a personal milestone. It was a powerful symbolic moment that marked the completion of Norway's transformation from a collection of independent territories into a unified kingdom. The cutting of his hair was performed by Earl Rognvald of Møre, one of his most trusted allies, in a ceremony that combined political significance with personal triumph. This event gave Harald his famous nickname, Fairhair, by which he would be known throughout history. The period following these major events was marked by efforts to consolidate power and establish lasting institutions of governance. Harald introduced standardized laws and taxation systems across his realm, created a more organized military structure, and established a court culture that would influence Norwegian society for centuries. He also had to deal with the consequences of his success, as many of those who opposed his rule chose to leave Norway rather than submit to his authority. This led to significant Norse settlement in Iceland and other North Atlantic territories, inadvertently expanding Norse influence across a wider geographic area. Throughout his reign, Harald demonstrated remarkable political acumen in balancing the need for strong central authority with respect for local traditions and practices. He understood that lasting unity required more than military victory. It needed sustainable administrative structures and the acceptance of local populations. His success in achieving this balance helps explain why his unification of Norway proved lasting. Unlike many other attempted consolidations of power in medieval Europe, these pivotal events and developments under Harald's rule not only shaped the immediate future of Norway, but established patterns of governance and social organization that would influence Scandinavian society for centuries to come. His achievements demonstrate how military prowess, administrative innovation, and political wisdom could combine to transform a fragmented collection of territories into a unified and lasting kingdom. The reign of Harald Fairhair marked a period of profound cultural and intellectual development in Norse society. During this transformative era, traditional Norse culture experienced significant evolution while maintaining its core identity, creating a rich tapestry of artistic, religious, and intellectual expression that would define the Viking Age. The role of skalds in Harald's court was particularly significant. These poet-historians were more than mere entertainers. They were the living repositories of Norse culture and history. Their intricate verses, composed using complex metaphorical language called kennings, served multiple purposes. They recorded historical events, praised heroic deeds, and preserved the collective memory of the Norse people. The skalds in Harald's court composed elaborate praise poems that not only celebrated his achievements, but also legitimized his rule through artistic expression. Religious life during this period was remarkably dynamic. While Norse paganism remained the dominant belief system, it was far from static. The traditional worship of gods like Odin, Thor, and Freyr continued to shape daily life, with religious ceremonies marking important seasonal changes and life events. Sacred sites, known as hofs, served as centers for communal worship and sacrifice. These religious practices were deeply intertwined with social and political structures, with kings often claiming divine ancestry through connection to the gods. However, the first whispers of Christianity were beginning to reach Norwegian shores through trade contacts and diplomatic relations with Christian kingdoms. This early exposure to Christianity was subtle but significant, primarily affecting coastal regions and trading centers. The interaction between Norse paganism and Christianity during this period was more complex than simple opposition, with some elements of Christian symbolism and ideas being incorporated into Norse cultural expression even before formal conversion. Intellectual life flourished in unexpected ways during Harald's reign. The Norse people developed and maintained sophisticated systems of law and governance, preserved through oral tradition and later recorded in legal codes. Their understanding of navigation, shipbuilding, and astronomy was remarkably advanced, enabling their famous maritime expeditions. The Norse number system and calendar demonstrated considerable mathematical and astronomical knowledge. Material culture underwent significant development during this period. Craftsmen produced increasingly sophisticated artifacts, from intricate jewelry to advanced weapons. The archaeological record shows a remarkable level of artistic achievement in metalwork, wood carving, and textile production. The famous Norse artistic styles, with their intricate animal motifs and complex patterns, reached new heights of sophistication during this era. The architecture of the period reflected both practical needs and cultural values. Longhouses became more complex in design, with specialized areas for different activities. Great halls, where Harald and other leaders held court, were carefully designed to impress and intimidate, with their size and decoration reflecting the power of their owners. These buildings served as centers for cultural exchange, where stories were shared, alliances were formed, and traditions were passed down. Literary culture, though primarily oral, was highly developed. The Norse people maintained complex genealogies, historical narratives, and mythological stories through sophisticated memorization techniques. The system of poetry was particularly advanced, with strict rules governing meter and alliteration. This oral tradition would later form the basis for the written sagas that preserved Norse history and culture for future generations. Education during this period was practical but comprehensive. Young people learned not only practical skills, but also the complex social codes, legal traditions, and religious practices that governed Norse society. The training of warriors included not just fighting techniques, but also the ethical codes and cultural values that defined Norse martial culture. Music played a vital role in Norse cultural life, though our knowledge of it is limited by its primarily oral nature. Instruments like the lyre, horn, and various percussion instruments accompanied both religious ceremonies and secular celebrations. Songs and chants were integral parts of religious rituals, military preparations, and social gatherings. The unification under Harald actually served to enhance cultural exchange within Norway. As different regions came under central control, local traditions and practices began to mix and influence each other, creating new cultural syntheses. This process was particularly evident in artistic styles and craft techniques, which show increasing uniformity and sophistication during this period. Sports and games were also important cultural elements. Competitions in wrestling, stone lifting, and various ball games served both as entertainment and as training for warfare. These activities were often integrated into religious festivals and social gatherings, helping to bind communities together and maintain physical prowess. These cultural and intellectual developments during Harald's reign laid the groundwork for the rich medieval Norse culture that would follow. The period represents a crucial phase in the development of Norwegian identity, combining tradition with innovation in ways that would influence Scandinavian culture for centuries to come. The unified Norwegian kingdom under Harald Fairhair developed an intricate network of international relationships that significantly impacted both Norway and its neighboring regions. These external interactions ranged from diplomatic alliances to trade partnerships, and from cultural exchanges to military confrontations, shaping the broader landscape of medieval Northern Europe. Trade relationships formed the backbone of Norway's international connections. Harald's unified kingdom was able to organize and protect trade routes more effectively than the previous fragmented territories had managed. Norwegian merchants traded valuable commodities including furs, walrus ivory, fish products and timber in exchange for silver, fine textiles, wine and luxury goods from continental Europe and the British Isles. The establishment of more systematic customs and tariffs under Harald's rule helped standardize these trading relationships. The relationship with the Frankish Empire was particularly significant. The Franks represented the most powerful political entity in Western Europe at the time, and Harald recognized the importance of maintaining diplomatic ties with them. Evidence suggests that Harald's court borrowed certain administrative practices from the Frankish model, particularly in terms of organizing a more centralized system of governance. The exchange of diplomatic missions between Norway and the Frankish Empire helped facilitate both political alliances and cultural exchange. Connections with the British Isles were complex and multifaceted. While Viking raids continued in some areas, Harald's unified kingdom also established more peaceful trading relationships with various British kingdoms. Archaeological evidence shows a significant exchange of goods and cultural influences between Norway and Britain during this period. The presence of British artifacts in Norwegian graves and Norse items in British sites testifies to the intensity of these connections. Harald's political achievements had a profound influence on other Scandinavian kingdoms. His successful unification of Norway served as a model for similar efforts in Denmark and Sweden. The administrative systems he established, particularly his innovation of appointed earls and systematic taxation, were studied and adapted by other Norse rulers seeking to strengthen their own authority. The kingdom's relationship with Iceland was particularly noteworthy. Many of those who opposed Harald's centralization of power chose exile in Iceland, leading to the establishment of a unique Norse society there. This migration, known as the landnam, land-taking, had the unexpected effect of spreading Norse culture and institutions across the North Atlantic. The Icelandic settlement preserved many traditional Norse practices, and would later provide much of our written knowledge about the Viking Age through their sagas. Maritime technology and expertise played a crucial role in these international relationships. Norwegian shipbuilding techniques were continuously refined through contact with other maritime cultures. The famous Viking longships became even more sophisticated during this period, incorporating innovations from various seafaring traditions encountered through trade and exploration. Cultural exchange was an inevitable consequence of these international connections. Foreign artistic styles began to influence Norse craftsmanship, while Norse design elements appeared in the art of trading partners. The presence of foreign goods and ideas in Norway led to the adoption of new fashions, technologies, and customs among the elite classes particularly. Religious interactions became increasingly important during Harald's reign. While Norway remained predominantly pagan, increased contact with Christian kingdoms exposed the Norse people to new religious ideas. Christian missionaries began to make preliminary inroads into Norwegian territory, though full Christianization would not occur until later periods. These early religious contacts, however, began to influence Norse cultural practices and belief systems. Diplomatic marriages played a crucial role in Harald's foreign policy. Strategic marriages helped secure alliances and strengthen Norway's international position. These unions also served as conduits for cultural exchange, bringing foreign customs and practices into the Norwegian court and extending Norwegian influence abroad. Military alliances and conflicts shaped many of these international relationships. Harald's unified military force could project power more effectively than the previous fragmented forces, making Norway a more significant player in regional politics. The kingdom's ability to defend its interests and support allies enhanced its diplomatic position throughout Northern Europe. The impact of these external interactions extended to legal and administrative practices. Norway's legal system began to incorporate elements from other traditions, particularly in areas concerning international trade and diplomatic relations. The kingdom developed more sophisticated methods for handling foreign merchants, diplomatic envoys, and international disputes. Language and communication also evolved through these international contacts. The Norse language incorporated new words and concepts from trading partners, while Norse terms entered other languages, particularly in maritime and commercial vocabulary. Multilingual individuals became increasingly valuable in diplomatic and commercial roles. These diverse international relationships helped transform Norway from a peripheral region into a significant player in medieval European affairs. Harald's unified kingdom was able to engage with other powers on more equal terms than had been possible before, setting the stage for Norway's continued importance in medieval European history. The legacy of these interactions would influence Norwegian society and culture long after Harald's reign, contributing to the kingdom's development as a distinctive and influential medieval state. Harald Fairhair's legacy stands as one of the most enduring and influential in Scandinavian history. His achievement in unifying Norway wasn't merely a political triumph, but a transformation that would shape Norwegian society for centuries to come. The administrative framework he established proved remarkably resilient, laying the groundwork for a stable and prosperous medieval kingdom. The systems of governance Harald introduced were revolutionary for their time. His model of appointing loyal earls to administer regions on behalf of the crown created a balanced approach between central authority and local autonomy. This administrative structure would influence not only Norway, but also serve as a template for other Scandinavian kingdoms in their own processes of state formation. One of Harald's most lasting contributions was the establishment of a unified legal framework. While local customs were still respected, the introduction of common laws and standards across the realm created a sense of shared identity and justice that transcended regional boundaries. This legal heritage would eventually evolve into Norway's medieval law codes, some of which remained influential well into the modern era. The economic reforms implemented during Harald's reign had far-reaching consequences. His standardization of taxation and trade regulations fostered economic growth and integration between different regions of Norway. The protection of trade routes under royal authority encouraged commerce and cultural exchange, leading to the development of important trading centers that would flourish throughout the medieval period. Harald's unification of Norway also had profound cultural implications. The creation of a unified kingdom facilitated the spread of common cultural practices and traditions across the realm. The royal court became a center of cultural production, where skalds composed and performed works that would become foundational pieces of Norse literature. These cultural achievements helped forge a distinct Norwegian identity that would persist through centuries of foreign rule and influence. Perhaps most significantly, Harald's reign marked Norway's transformation from a collection of competing chiefdoms into a recognized European power. The unified kingdom he created would go on to play a crucial role in medieval European politics, establishing diplomatic relationships with other major powers and participating in the broader currents of European history. The social mobility that emerged under Harald's rule represented a significant departure from traditional Norse society. By creating new paths to advancement through royal service, he established a more dynamic social structure that would characterize medieval Norwegian society. This innovation helped maintain political stability by providing ambitious individuals with legitimate means of improving their status within the system. Harald's personal qualities as a leader have become legendary, serving as a model for subsequent generations of rulers. His combination of military prowess, political acumen, and administrative skill demonstrated the attributes necessary for successful state-building. The story of his vow not to cut his hair until achieving unification has become a powerful symbol of determination and commitment to a greater cause. The impact of Harald's unification extended beyond Norway's borders. The exodus of those who opposed his rule led to the settlement of Iceland and other North Atlantic territories, spreading Norse culture and institutions across a wider geographic area. These settlements would preserve and develop unique aspects of Norse culture, contributing to the rich tapestry of medieval Scandinavian civilization. Modern Norway continues to bear the imprint of Harald's achievement. The territorial boundaries he established largely correspond to today's Norwegian state, and many of the administrative districts he created evolved into modern Norwegian counties. His role as a nation builder has made him a powerful symbol of Norwegian national identity and unity. Looking back across more than a millennium, Harald Fairhair's unification of Norway represents more than just a political milestone. It marked the beginning of a sustained process of state formation that would transform a fragmented collection of territories into a cohesive nation. His legacy reminds us that nation-building requires not only military strength, but also political wisdom, administrative skill, and cultural sensitivity. If you've been captivated by Harald Fairhair's remarkable story, don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the Medieval Archives channel. In the comments, tell us which aspect of Norway's unification struck you as most fascinating. See you on our next journey into the past.